Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz composer, arranger, and educator Jim McNeely. He was born in Chicago and moved to New York City in 1975. In 1978, he joined the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Jazz Orchestra and spent 6 years as a featured soloist with that band. That was followed by a 4-year tenure as pianist and composer with the Stan Getz Quartet.Then on to Phil Woods and the jazz world beyond. Along with his music chops, he's a prolific and widely respected educator. Please get to know him and dig it.
Okay, Jim, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today.
Hey, you're welcome.
How's everything going in your part of the world? Where exactly are you at?
I'm in Maine. I'm in Mid-Coast, Maine.
Wow.
So it's not too bad up here, I have to say. There's about almost 1,000 cases in Maine, but most of it's down near Portland, Portland, Maine, and we're up farther from that. So it's not too bad. It's not like, certainly not like New York or, Chicago or New Orleans or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, thanks for taking a minute out. I figured this would be a good oasis to kind of talk about music for a little bit. And I got to tell you, you are one of the most referenced people that one of the top 5 reference people that musicians always talk about.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So thanks for taking a minute out. So you're originally from Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about growing up and how jazz became your life.
Well, when I was a kid, I took piano lessons. I started when I was in first grade at a nun at the school where I went to a Catholic school. But in my second year with her, she got sick, and my mother found a teacher who started to teach me theory, he taught me how to read a lead sheet. He wasn't a jazz musician by any means, but he kind of got me interested in what's this stuff about harmony and how do you put tunes together. And when I finally started to get into jazz, just kind of by accident, the music really spoke to me, because I kept thinking there must be some kind of, jazz was not part of the household when I grew up. My dad was into the big bands, Tommy Dorsey and Glenn Miller, and also polka music, which was, luckily I avoided that one. But, when I discovered jazz, I thought, well, here's the kind of music where I can use this theory that I've been learning. And also the fact you could improvise was exciting to me, and the rhythm just got to me, the rhythmic aspect of jazz. So I went to a high school just outside of Chicago that had a big band. At the time, that was kind of rare, but the director was a guy, he was a priest named George Wiskirchen, and his idol was Count Basie, and so he had a really swinging big band, especially in those days for a high school. And he encouraged me to start writing for big band, and we had, little combos at school and so forth. And I just kind of got into it on my own, and one thing led to another.
You've learned from some big names, Stan Getz and Phil Woods and so many legends and luminaries. What did they teach you that helped you as a teacher?
One thing all those people taught me, is that you lead by example. None of them really said anything. One time, Stan had a couple of gigs and I couldn't make them, and so he wanted to have a rehearsal with my sub piano player to, so he could show him the ropes. And I went to the rehearsal, and Stan was saying things not only to him but to the rhythm section what he wanted, and I thought that was great. And later on, he got into teaching at Stanford University, and he said to me, "I'm really nervous about teaching because I don't really teach." I said, "Remember that rehearsal you had with the trio?" I said, "You were teaching then. It wasn't. You didn't call it that. It was just a rehearsal. But the way he, the little things that he said, here and there were really valuable. And then also just the way he played, and the way Phil played, and the way Thad Jones played, and all these people that I worked with. When you got to hear somebody every night, and you heard how they shaped the solo, and you heard how the time was so strong, and from playing with all those people, that's when I learned the three most important things that you respond to are the time, the sound, and the degree of belief in what you're doing. Whether it's a sharp 9 or a flat 5, that's way down on the list. It's not about the notes. So, for all those people, just working with them night after night and hearing how they play the same tune night after night, and there were things they would do that would be similar and things that they do that every night that were different. And I learned a lot from them.
What has been the most enjoyable part of being in the jazz world for all these years?
I have to say playing the music, getting on stage with people that you've been, most of the time it's been with bands that I've been working with for a while. Once in a while it's a really spontaneous kind of thing that everything clicks, but that, to me, that's the most enjoyable part, is when, you're in the middle of playing and things just feel good. And, most of the time the audience is there with you and they're enjoying it, and that's great. But that to me is my favorite part of it, the actual performance part, when you actually you're not traveling anymore, you're not in a van or a plane or a bus, or you're not, getting up at 4 a.m. in the hotel to make a lobby call, or you're not dealing with promoters or agents or any of that. You're just playing the music. That to me is that's the biggest payback.
If you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger self, say, when you were just getting ready to hit it in New York, and you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Relax. Don't play so much so soon. I mean, that would be specific advice I'd give to myself. And then the other advice I would give myself is there's going to be ups and downs. It's not a straight line from where you start up to where you end up. There's bumps in the road, and there are times when you get a boost, and that'd be the main thing. I'd want to just kind of assure the younger self that things are going to, they'll be okay if you just keep at it. I think when I was younger, I was probably concerned that it wasn't going to work out.
This is kind of a unique time in our lives with, the COVID-19 going on and everything that's happening. What do you hope both the musician and the audience member gets from this experience that's revelatory when we come back?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question, because, I talk with my friends who are not only performers but also teaching, and this thing, it's hit that world like a ton of bricks. There's already been, with the advent of social media, there's been a little bit of movement towards doing live streaming via the internet and teaching via the internet and all. But the COVID is just forcing everybody to abandon all the other options and just figure it out with the resources we have now that are available to us. And I think when things get back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is, it's still going to be a part of life. It's not all going to be about live performance. It's not all going to be about getting several hundreds of people into the same room to hear music. Unfortunately, because it's a beautiful feeling when it happens. But I'm concerned that maybe the aftermath of this situation it's going to create, some different parameters for performance that they're going to work, but they're not going to be as satisfying as the way things used to be. Jazz, and all when well, everything that we know in our lives developed not in a sense of isolation, whatever it is. We're talking about the arts or things in science or education or any field. It all happened as parts of collaboration and people getting together. And now, I think the COVID situation is going to leave a mark on the world, on the culture in that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
So, what was the first live jazz show you ever saw that made you think you want to do this with your life?
Good question. I remember a local big band in the Chicago area that my parents took me to. It was a summer concert at there was a shopping center in the northwest suburbs that had outdoor concerts, and they took me to it was a local big band, and I remember we walked in and the band was playing already, and I heard a big chord and a big shout chorus kind of thing, and something inside me went, wow, that's, what was that? I think the first big band that I ever saw was the Count Basie band. Like I said, my high school band director, he knew Frank West and Frank Foster and those guys, and he'd always, if the Basie band was near Chicago, he'd get us tickets to go see the band, and I think that's the first time I ever heard live jazz, in the flesh, and it just knocked me out.
So, everyone has a perception of you. Hold on, I'm sorry, there's a loud truck. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your students, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, I'm this guy, I don't know. It's sometimes I see things that are written about me, and I think they're talking about somebody else. I still, in a way, I'm in the same position I was, 50 years ago. I'm still trying to figure this music out and get better at it, and there were people that helped me along the way, and I'm trying to pass that along in my own way to people coming up after me. And I'm also, besides a musician, I'm a father and a husband, and that's important too. That's always been important in my life. I was kind of a little late getting started on all of those areas, but it's been a great part of my life as well. So I like to think of myself as, just more or less a complete human being that plays music and writes music and has a family and lives.
Beautiful, Jim. Thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate you opening up and giving me a minute of your time.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Chicago, Maine, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jim for his time, cool, and music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.